Okay, cool. So let's do this. What we got? Boom, 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 boom. Cool. Synced up. Right, let's do this. So you might be wondering about these 2080 Ti cards. This is a port released today, potentially, because I know for the people in the States, they're a day behind me here in New Zealand. But yeah, the 2080 Ti cards are being delayed to September the 27th, so the cards won't be out now before this video goes out. And I want to just talk about these just really quick, because if you're thinking of buying a 2080 Ti, might want to just have a think before you do so. I'm not trying to sell the 2080 necessarily either. Apparently it is faster than a Titan XP according to this article. I'm not entirely sure why they think it's faster than a Titan. Oh, okay. So where's the Titan then? Anyways, they think it's faster than a Titan, which is that's an interesting headline there being put out. Should be pretty easy to see where the information is about it being faster than a Titan XP running on stock. I'm really curious about that. The 3D Firestrike score is higher than the 2080 Ti, but that's not the Titan. So anyways, I think that's kind of bullshit. The 2080, though, from what I understand it, is still faster than a 1080 Ti. And that's positive. That's positive. Where is it? Where is it? I mean, like, I've seen a whole lot of 2080 is 50% faster than the 1080 and stuff like that. You know, crushes for 4K gaming. You know, you've got this one here, which I suppose is going to back that up. You can see here 4K 60 HD with the 2080. 66 frames, 77 frames. I'm not sure what setting that is. I've always had an issue with this image here, trying to figure out exactly what they meant by that, but I'm assuming that's at max. But it's a dangerous assumption, and that's why I made this video. Okay? You don't need this. You don't need a Ti for 4K. The 2080 can get 60 frames at 4K at stock. From what I can tell, they're gonna continue selling the 10 series, and that's great that we're selling them for the holiday season. And you know what, I think that's fair. At the moment, the 1080 Ti, if we go to part picker, 1080 Ti's, this is New Zealand dollars by the way, just so you know, well, they're still kind of pricey. But the thing to remember is that even though we've got like some $1,300 1080 Ti's here, the RTX card, like the 2080 Ti, costs about $1,000 for the base model. And so the issue that we have is that means that in New Zealand it's probably going to be about $2,250 for a 2080 Ti. And you know, when you've got this kind of shit occurring here where it's, you know, it's about at that point. I don't know why there are two different graphs here. That seems kind of garbage. I've just realized there's two of these. These are misleading. Which one is correct? Because this one shows the green line slightly at the line, and this one says that it's slightly below the line. Which is it? But again, as I've said, that at max settings, if the 2080 is getting this, right? Isn't that what you'll want? Isn't that the kind of standard at the moment, 4K 60? Or hang on, because we've got these things. We got these things coming, right? 4K monitor, you know. Actually, never mind. No, I thought that was 4K 120. Apparently that's bullshit. Here we go. 4K 120 Hz rates. There's like one. And it's gonna be about, on eBay, it's about $1,400. This is not needed. Okay? This is not needed. And yeah, I may use ad blocker when I'm doing these videos, but it's only because some of the sites I go to are kind of weird. As in, like, some of the media sites have like weird ads. That sounds worse than it probably is. I don't watch those sorts of things, if you're wondering. I don't have this on my phone, which is where I watch YouTube. So I do watch ads. Okay, I'm a good lad. I watch my ads. But the thing with this is, man, is that if you're already spending like two grand New Zealand, or even like 1,000, let's just take USD, $1,000 plus a $1,400 monitor. I mean, this is a fucking It's 43 inches, right? And that might be impressive to talk to your friends about, like, in terms of the hertz rate, but 43 inches, that's really small for a 4K television. If we look at 4K televisions, like this, here, it's like a fucking 55 inch. And this is, we got some bigger ones. Well, we got some 75s and above, boys and girls. Got that good old 77 inch, 15997. That's massive. Now, before we continue, like, we don't have to be mathematicians, we don't have to be experts on mathematics to understand that if the resolution, when we've got a 27-inch 1080p monitor, is really good, right? If you're quadrupling the amount of pixels by going to 4K, because that's what it is, you're quadrupling it. That's why it looks really good when you downscale from 4K on a 1080p monitor. You can justify having like 108 hertz monitor. You can use that to and have an equivalent amount of frames, as I understand it. I could be wrong. There's probably some trickiness in there. It might not be quite the same, and I understand there's a difference between, is an 85-inch one. I understand there's a difference between the different types of TV and the different types of glass, and you know how everything's portrayed and the colors and all that. But let's just be honest. You don't fucking need 4K 120 hertz. If you're wanting 120 hertz, you could literally just go for like a monitor that is 1440, like 3440 by, you know, that kind of resolution. That's probably like an ultra wide monitor. Can you get those? What are those? Oh, so you can get like 34. Yeah, they're 100 hertz. I mean, that's not bad. 100 hertz is probably bad. As I understand it, like, people generally prefer to have like at least 90 to 100 frames for shooters. 120. Can you get 144 hertz? I'm pretty sure you get 144 hertz. Yeah, see, of course you can. Like, this is 144 hertz, right? Of course it is. So this is only 1440p. So you got a 34-inch monitor, right? Which is going to be reasonably decent. It's sort of a smaller ultra wide, I guess. You've got, I think that would display quite well. You get a higher refresh rate than this. And let's just chill on the whole panel thing, right? Let's just chill on 4K 60. I don't think we're ready for it. Like, if we have a look at this, the ray tracing that this 2080 Ti has been displaying and proudly showing its beautiful plumage with, it does 1080p 60. The ray tracing technology is not developed yet. It's not at the state where we can expect it to perform equally to how we might expect like gaming to work normally. So that's why we don't have Battlefield 5 running with 4K ray tracing, because the technology is incredibly new. It's just not ready. We're not ready for 4K 60 FPS ray tracing or even 1440p. We're at HD, and that's fine. I'm gonna gamble on the fact that it was a 2080 Ti that did 60 frames, and that's fucking fine. We don't need 4K at this point, because can you imagine how expensive a 4K P60 ray tracing card would be if the 1080 P60 one is $1,000 at the moment? One of the most expensive mainstream graphics cards that's ever been released. It's obnoxiously expensive. And the fact that we've only really been given these benchmarks quite recently, you know, the fact that we've only received this information quite recently, as I understand it, like, this was a few days after the pre-orders opened. They barely fucking put that shit out. I mean, for someone pre-ordering, this is completely open to interpretation, isn't it? Oh, so it is a 2080. Exactly, so if it's a 2080, there's no point in getting a fucking 2080 Ti. This does 60 frames at, it could be max, it could be high, it could not be anything. This could be with ray tracing. I don't know. I sincerely doubt it, because you can see 93 FPS here. No, it's not with ray tracing, because this is 4K and we can barely get 1080p 60 with ray tracing on a Ti. So I guess this is what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to I'm trying to talk about the sense that comes from these graphics cards. At the moment, we've got these here are these 1080 Ti's, right? And if we go back to this here, we can see the 1080 Ti is just below 4K 60 FPS. The reality is that for people at the moment who have a 1080 Ti and who are getting 4K 60 FPS at the moment, there's literally no need for you to upgrade. There's not. The only reason you want to upgrade is if you want to have ray tracing. At the moment, if you get ray tracing, you're going to stick with probably a higher 4K frame rate. So maybe you'll be able to go up to 90 Hz or 120 Hz, and that might be worth it for you. You might not just be satisfied with 4K 60. You might want 4K 120, and that's like I would say by the graph that's probably about 80 to 90 frames. Otherwise, this graph means fucking nothing. The reality is, look at what they're referencing here. They are kind of fucking panicked at the moment. And this is exactly the point. Like, originally, they showed this shit. And then, they panicked and showed this shit. And this is the thing. I hadn't read this update down here before. They needed to show this stuff at the presentation. But instead, they just put out numbers. Like, if we talk about the performance metrics, we look at it. I'm looking for like a specific thing they said. Yeah, I mean, this is a good start. Like, there have been various performance metrics. They're talking about 35 to 45% faster versus Pascal predecessors in current games. But here's the thing, right? That doesn't fucking matter, because unless you've got a $1,400 120 Hz monitor, of which there are like there's one here, and I know that Acer have unleashed like a Predator one. Maybe that's a 4K 120. You know, maybe there are a few that are more affordable, but I know the Acer one was more than $1,400 as I understand it. Like, for us in New Zealand, we're kind of shit out of luck, because if we want to play above 4K 60, we've got to really pay out the butt. It's kind of why I like consoles, because consoles, you get 4K 60 most of the time with the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One, yes, or whatever it was. And you know, that's the point. It just works mostly when they properly optimize the game. I think the thing is, you as a console player, you might be like, well, what does this have to do with me? And the answer is because if this takes off, gaming consoles are going to need cards like this. If AMD can't provide cards for PlayStation and Xbox that have ray tracing, they'll probably turn to NVIDIA, and NVIDIA are going to charge for these cards with ray tracing, and then what's going to happen is the price of these cards is going to cause the price of the consoles to skyrocket. The consoles are going to skyrocket in price if this becomes a trend. And this is why I'm very hesitant to really consider. I don't consider the ray tracing to be a meaningful thing at all. I don't at all. I don't consider it to be worth $2,000. I mean, we can get 1080p 60 probably with a 1080 Ti or even a 1080 on like high. You could probably get that without ray tracing, and I don't care if it's optional. Basically, people have been fucked over by a company. It just knew that people would dive deep into this quagmire. They just dive deep in and just shovel the bullshit into their mouths about this card and pre-order before knowing stats like this shit here. And then when people are still wanting stats when they provide this with no reference to performance, it's just, I don't understand it. I don't understand this at all, man. Good, it's not too long a video, I can edit this down. I don't like making long videos, but I'm glad that I've had a look into this today, because I've decided I'm going to get a 2080. Because here is my conclusion on these graphics cards. I'm kind of tired, so my train of thought is kind of off, but here's what I'm thinking, okay? If I go to this, right, you can see there the 2080 is around $700. Now for me, that's $1,400 because I live in New Zealand. Oh wait, no, what am I talking about? This whole entire time, I've been thinking that the exchange rate is 2, but it's 1.5. Alright, so look, I'll probably note that in the video at the start, because my brain was being dumb. So hopefully I made a note of that at the start of the video, because my brain has been dumb. So this is actually going to be about $1,000, which is about the price for a 1080 at the moment. It's actually just slightly more expensive than a 1080. So the pricing is reasonable. And if the 2080 gets consistent 4K performance in any game, then it's fine. But then we think about this stuff about TVs and the amount of pixels you get in regards to the size, and I don't even really fucking know if that's worth it. Like, you're better off to just buy just a 50-inch. Just look, I wanna conclude this. Don't bother with the fucking 2070. It's just not worth your fucking time. It's not. It's not. Just get a 1080 Ti. Or just get a 1080, okay? The reason I say it's not worth your time is because NVIDIA doesn't think it's worth its fucking time. Like, look at it, it's not even mentioned. It's not even mentioned. Where the fuck I've seen very little about the 2070. But I've seen about the 2080 and 2080 Ti because I know that's the one that people are pitting against each other. Notice how that's a diagonal line. I'm disappointed by the fact that the 2070 doesn't seem to have a purpose. But the thing is, I've never personally rated the 2070 anyways. I don't understand why you'd need that 2070 anymore. Like, cause we have this. We have, like, what? None of this means anything anymore. I think I'm starting to get broken by this a little bit. None of this means anything. For the gamer that wants 1080p, it's so easy these days. You can practically get 1080p with a 980 Ti. So 1080p is totally fucking easy these days. Just a 1080 is overkill for 1080p. You don't need a 1080p to a GTX 1080 for it. You don't. You can get 1080p 60 on a GTX 1060, 6 gig, or a GTX 980 Ti, or even a 1050 Ti with the 4 gigs of VRAM. You don't need a 1080 for this unless you're doing fucking ray tracing, in which case you need to spend like $1,500 on a 2080 Ti to be able to get reflections in the water. Because apparently that is what NVIDIA is excited about and got a little fucking ray tracing hard on at the moment. You could ask, well then what do you get for 1440p? And for 1440p, you just get a 1080. Just get a 1080. You know? Just get a 1080. That'll handle most stuff in 1440p. I can play half of the games in my Steam library in 4K 60. The Witcher 3 runs on high settings at 44 frames. It'll run 60 and fucking easy. It'll run 60 on high settings in 1440p. Get a 1080. And if you're not convinced, if you're like, you want a higher frame rate like for one of these guys, just get a 2080. Just get a 2080. And if you want 4K 60, just get a 2080. And then if you want to do ray tracing, get a 2080 Ti. And if you really want, if you are completely fucking determined to go ahead and get that 4K 120 because you're balling and you have more money than sense, then go for it, man. Like, honestly, go for it. You're gonna lose 20% of the value of that graphics card as soon as it gets into your hands. And if you've upgraded from a 1080 Ti to a 2080 Ti, just for fucking reflections in the water, I don't like to insult people in videos, because it means I have to delete the videos later on, because they're not representative of the kind of person I want to be. I want to educate people with these videos. I don't understand what the fuck anyone would buy a 2080 Ti when you could just play 1440p at like 120 Hz with 2080. What games? What games are you gonna play where you need 120 frames at 4K? And you'll see a difference. Like, unless you have like an 85-inch TV. Like, what gamer runs a 20? You'd have to be super rich. I think that's the final point I want to make, is that these gaming cards are not aimed at anyone apart from people who are incredibly wealthy. These two You are not going to get the best experience out of these two graphics cards unless you have a really fucking sick setup. And they've gone the Apple route where they're trying to cater to they're trying to cater to the people that just have money that they just want to throw at NVIDIA. And I think that makes sense. But why would you want to lower your resolution if you've got the money to buy a 2080 Ti? You probably have a nice television, right? Especially if you upgraded from 1080 Ti, you probably bought that for 4K. Why would you then want a 1080p 60 experience? You won't. You won't want a 1080p experience because if you've had a 1080 Ti, then you'll have had 4K 60 in a lot of situations. There's no point in buying this one. There's no point. It's not fucking ready. You can save around fucking, like, I can save $600. No, I can't save $600. I can save, my maths is terrible. I can save $450 by buying the 2080. And I can get 4K 60. And that's that. And if I want to play fucking Overwatch, I can already do that on my 1080, so I wouldn't fucking bother for Overwatch. Like, I don't even know why I need this card. Why would you need this card to play 1440p? You wouldn't. So this is 4K. And a lot of people are probably going to get 4K and they're going to buy monitors that aren't this big. They're probably going to have like 50-inch monitors, which, yeah, are a little bit too big for 1080p, let's be honest. There's a bit of blurriness, but they're not the size needed to see a massive difference, especially with high max settings. So yeah, this is going to take a while to hit it. So yeah, to conclude, 1080p 60, just get a 1060 6 gig or a 1050 4 gig or a 980 Ti if that rolls your boat. 1440p, just go for a fucking 1080. Go for a 1080. For 4K 60, just go for the RTX 1080 and just play it on, don't play it on max. Anyways, what's the point? We don't know what the cooling is going to be like on these cards. So why are we going to just assume that the max settings are the best? Do you really want to then have to fucking water cool your graphics card? Because for me, I'd have to spend $1,700 to be able to water cool my fucking rig, because I have to get that water cooling stuff imported from overseas, because we don't have a place in New Zealand that I understand, that I know of, that can do water cooling, that sells water cooling stuff. I might be wrong. Maybe someone can educate me on that. But I'm expecting to be $1,500 from EKW, Waterbox, and maybe I'm just being snobby, but that's the reality, because if I wanted to smash my graphics card with max settings, I feel like that's nigh on sadistic. And as someone who's actually studied video game design, there's very little to gain from that, but it's fucking hairworks and all that kind of shit. Are you going to spend $600 extra so that you can see individual strands move, or so that you can see a little bit of fucking reflection on the floor? Is that what the gaming, is that how close we've come to perfection in terms of the visual medium? Is that how far we've come, that the last pinnacle, the one people are reaching for, from God reaching down below to the sinners on the earth, is this what is worth it for people now? Is this the height of consumerism right now, that we are buying cards like this when they're already 1080 Ti's just because we want to see fucking reflections in the water and on cars? When is anybody... I sincerely doubt that 95% of people gave a shit before NVIDIA started talking about it. And yes, it's amazing that ray tracing can now be done in real time, but skip a generation. Just don't fucking bother in this generation. And if you have an inch of fucking discipline, wait a year or two and wait for when NVIDIA release the ray tracing cards that can do 4K 60. Wait until the 30 Ti or the 2180 Ti. You don't have to waste an extra $1,000 if you don't want to. If you have $1,000 lying there and you already have a 1080 Ti, please just buy a 2080. Or if you're gonna buy a 2080 Ti, just don't max it out and break your fucking card. Just don't do it. Because you're just taxing it. You're taxing it too much. I feel like the kind of person who would buy a 2080 Ti is the same kind of person who wouldn't give a shit about what someone said about them doing, because often the kind of people who get rich in this world are the same people who don't listen to others and do their own things. But I assume that they would have... Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully this has been made into a video that's coherent. Stay cool, see you later, and is there anything else before I go? Anything else? Anything else? Yeah, no, I think we're good. Cause I have a 2080. I mean a 1080. I mean, I guess that's it. I wanted a 1080 Ti for so long, and then one day I realized, hey, the 1080 Ti can't do 4K 60 yet. And I saved $400, and I have an amazing feeling that if I play my cards right, I'll probably save more money. And yeah, actually feeling pretty good right now. See you later. Bye-bye.